Hello and welcome to Help I Need an Adult. We're here at Foggy Water Studios and we're your hosts, Matt and Megan. And as always, our trusty sidekick, Mixmaster Chef. Oh, okay. Hey, we're going to have a great episode for you guys today. And her name is Cari, and she works at Tree of Life Healing, and she does a little thing called neurotherapy and acupuncture, and there's a whole other list of things she does. She deals with essential oils. She treated my wife and when we were trying to get pregnant, and it is all positive, and I can't say enough about this lady. She's a great person, and she's sweet and honest, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it.
Thanks for coming on a Sunday because I work on Saturday. So
No, I'm glad you came.
Yeah, we are just really appreciative that you made the time.
So, but yeah, tell us about your practice and Tree of Life Healing, and like why people should come there, because I think they should from personal experience. And if you've got something wrong with you, I mean, even if it's something minor to something serious, you kind of do it all, right?
Yes, I do. Well, I've been practicing acupuncture and Chinese medicine for 17 years, going on my 18th year. So I've really seen thousands of cases over the years. And it's really all about bringing the body back to homeostasis or balance.
Yeah.
So even with fertility or chronic pain, it's looking at case by case, because we're looking at the whole person. That's why I love alternative medicine, because I'm looking at just you. I don't do the same points for every person that comes in. I don't do the same diet. I'm trying to really tailor it to your medical history and where you've been. So if everybody is born with a different size stress suitcase from your family history, DNA.
I like that, the stress suitcase.
Yes, your birth trauma, because being born is traumatic. Even if you have a good birth, you're still fitting your little body in a even smaller hole, right?
Right.
So you start stacking up those stressors from birth until today.
Right.
So basically, why I think everybody should get a session for alternative medicine, whether it's the Tree of Life or wherever you are in your towns, is because it starts unpacking that stress suitcase.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that was something that I've been reading about a lot, is about getting flight or fight responses stuck in your body.
Yes.
Right now I'm reading When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate, I think that's his name. And it's really brought to my attention a lot about stress, especially childhood trauma, and how it affects you later on, and maybe possible reasons why I have multiple sclerosis.
Right.
And so when you talk about treating the whole body instead of just parts of the body, like a traditional medical doctor, because they see the body as a machine and they separate the mind from the body, but you can't, because the mind and the body, they are the same. It's mind body medicine. And I do think lots of people should come see. I mean, we've talked about it. I haven't ventured into alternative medicine, but I do read about it a pretty good bit. But
so you have your sympathetic nervous system, which is a fancy word for fight or flight or freeze, right? And then you have your parasympathetic, which is your healing mode. So you're either in stress mode or you're in a healing mode. It's a switch. You can't be in both at the same time. So it's very hard to heal the body when you're in chronic pain, you're in chronic stress. So getting acupuncture, getting regular massages, doing yoga, going to even an exercise class that can help your serotonin, your neurotransmitters, bring down your stress response.
Right.
Doing some breathing exercises can help put you in that parasympathetic nervous system, so your body can start to heal itself.
Because it's like you're almost locked when you get stress. Your body's just locked in that mode of you're just stressed out and you're trying to like fix something or what's the problem? Right. Where's the issue? And so your body is like that fight or flight response type deal, and that's what's kind of keeping you on edge all the time. Yes,
and I think for a lot of us, especially in this country, is the Neanderthals would the saber-toothed tiger would come around the tree and come at them, they would start running, right? Heart rate, breath rate starts to go up, and they outrun the tiger. And then everything just comes back to normal. Right. Just like you see the gazelles on the safari, they start eating grass within,
they're like, okay, we're chill now. we can
rest.
Right, we can
right.
go back to normal.
For humans, we are just expecting the next tiger to come around the tree. So we have that anticipation response, which takes our neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and makes them really drop because we never really feel safe.
Right.
Our body's always waiting for the next stressor to come around the corner and get us.
Plus, we can always make stuff up in our mind. That was something else that I read
Correct.
recently, that we are constantly creating scenarios in our mind that can stress us out because our
Mhm.
brain doesn't know the difference between a real situation and a
Yes.
situation that you've just come up with.
Mhm.
So that was really interesting to me too, that we just can't. I think that's about being present too.
Mhm.
Creating an imaginary saber-toothed tiger
Yeah,
of
Sure.
sorts.
Yeah, exactly.
and social media,
Yeah.
and that, and being
Yeah.
constantly bombarded with, I mean, just things,
I-
anything.
I have a protocol that I do that I put the cell phone on top of you
Yeah.
and I have you hold your arm strong. And I'll talk about the brain work that I do. And I can even demonstrate that later if we have time.
Yeah.
But I put the phone on and I test the body, and the body is not stressed by the phone. We think of the phones as being very stressful, the EMFs and all that. But I can literally put a phone on you and ask your brain, does this stress you? And this says no. But I'll take a straw or a pen or anything and I'll say, hold this. So the brain holds that. It gets distracted by doing this. And then I test the arm again and it gets weak.
Right.
So the brain is looking at the phone now is a distraction. It can't do two things at once. So how often are you distracted when you're on your phone? 100% of the time, right? So that's why the phone can get the brain to kind of go haywire.
Right.
I had a little girl that was having terrible stomach pains after she ate. And I noticed that she had an Apple iWatch on and she had her own smartphone. She was 11 years old. Yeah. Anyway, in my system, my body system, where I can scan just about anything from birth until today, and we'll talk about that later, I couldn't find any neurological response that affected her digestive system, her stomach, anything, her fight or flight system, nothing. I was dumbfounded. This was a couple weeks ago. And the very last thing I did, because it's my dog and pony show at the end of everything, is I put her phone and her watch on her belly.
Yeah.
And I showed her, if you hold a straw, it distracts your brain because you can't do two things at once, especially on the phone. And her digestive system just blew out. So her stomach showed up. Her lymphatic system showed up, which is your waterway system. We're 70% water. So her drainage system of her lymph showed up. Her right shoulder showed up. All of a sudden, I get this picture in my head, and I look at her and I said, do you sit at the dinner table with your phone? Do you put your phone out here and hold it up while you eat with your left hand and watch videos? And you should have seen the look on that little girl's face. Her mom's like, every single night. I said, your body is in a stress response from being distracted by the phone. You're not digesting your food properly.
Right.
So I want you to go off your phone when you're eating.
Yeah, because it's trying to go back and forth to digest the
Can't
phone.
do two things at once. So, and you're not chewing your food because you're not paying attention because you're watching your YouTube videos of whatever. And so 3 days went by and Mom reaches out to me and she said, all her symptoms are gone because she
That's
got off of her
awesome.
phone and was able to eat her dinner.
Something so simple.
So I think too, the social media just being so plugged in all the time really gets our stress response up. And
Yeah.
that's that saber-toothed tiger that's always ready. You're waiting for a text, right?
Oh yeah,
You're waiting for
a message,
that email to come
a
through.
like, a heart.
So it
yeah.
keeps you kind of in that fight or flight nervous system.
Right.
No, and I
Yeah.
think we're all guilty of that. Like, I know that there have been times that I've played on my phone while I eat, and
Sure.
I know later on I'll be like, oh, I just do not feel right.
Yeah.
And we should be more mindful of that. That brings up a great point, because I know
Mhm.
my kids they'll play on it. If I don't say, hey, we're going to sit
Mhm.
down, we're going to have dinner together, we're not going to be distracted tonight. And
Yes.
I've been trying to do better, but, because like I said, I think we're all guilty.
Yeah, I try to do that, like especially when me and the wife go out to eat.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
I try to just
Mhm.
put my phone in my pocket, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna leave it there, unless if somebody calls me, I'll pull it out, look at it. But if it's not somebody like my mom or my sister, if it's just a friend, I'm just going to put it back and let it go to voicemail. And if it's an emergency, I'm sure they'll call me multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just try to do that because it's like, I just want to focus. Like, I don't think people like have conversations anymore, like real engaging conversations, because they are on their phone. And it's like, it's easy to do. That's it. You know, because you see something on your phone and then you just go down the little YouTube rabbit hole or the, you know, or see the Facebook, you're just like, yep.
Well,
that's
I mean,
cool.
part of it, like sometimes I will just scroll and I'm just like, I'm not even looking at this. I don't care about any of this. I'm literally just
You're just scrolling.
motion.
Yeah.
And then it feels like I get so unfocused. Like I'm really not focused. And then I feel like he was saying, if I go out to dinner with my husband or whatever and we're talking and he pulls out the phone, then I don't feel important, you know. And those are all things that can really put stress on the body. And you know, again, I think and we talked about technology with Chris and how it affects your everyday life. It is becoming a huge problem, maybe even an epidemic for some people.
And for the brain health, you know, primarily I do work with the brain, so that right side is constantly stimulated. If you go into a restaurant and look around, whole families will just be on their phones. They won't be engaging. And really all we have is the present. It is our gift. It models our future. And I think we lose a lot of time with our children because we're so preoccupied on their phones. We're letting them, because it's a way to calm them if you're out or whatever, let them be on their phone. I'm guilty of that too. My son's on my phone.
And it is nice.
Right now.
It is nice, you know.
Well, our daughter she's got an ear infection, and that's what she's doing. And when I go to the grocery store, you know, moms with their kids, they give them their phone so that they don't cry, because really, we want to be accepted by everybody, and we know that if our kid makes a scene, somebody's gonna look at us and they're gonna be like, that person is the bad mom. And you're not a bad mom if if your kid has a tantrum, you're not a bad mom. Kids have tantrums, but you do. That is a stressor too. And you're like, I want to eliminate as much stress as possible. And this little box,
it calms them. It makes them happy.
So that makes you like feel less stressed.
So it's just taking a break, making sure they get off, they rest their eyes, so the signaling of their brain isn't on overload. Because a lot of these kids, they have terrible insomnia. I don't know if your kids have trouble going to sleep at night.
They do.
But they're on their tablets or their phones right up until the time they're supposed to go to bed, and then their brain doesn't shut off.
I'm super guilty of doing that myself. And I've been trying so hard to like put it down, and then just kind of like 30 minutes before I'm actually wanting to go to sleep. And then it's like, that time just slowly creeps by, and then I realize, oh, it's 10:30 at night, and I gotta wake up at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, I should probably put this phone down. But then I see something else on, and I'm like, what'll 15 minutes more, and then another 40 minutes goes by.
Yeah, and I seen an advertisement today actually for little, you know, those glasses that cut out blue light, but they were for kids. And I was like, wow, this is how far we've come. Like we're trying
it's
to
a real
cut.
thing.
Yeah,
my son has 2 pair.
Really?
And
do they help really?
When he's on his computer, he wears those. They do help block the blue light.
So it helps him kind of go to sleep a little faster, a little easier, so he doesn't have that insomnia kind of going on.
Well, and that blue light is associated with depression, anxiety.
It's so strange how something like that can link, and that's why I love wanting to talk to you about that, because the way it links something like a blue light can affect your whole body.
Yes.
Because it's affecting your brain, and if something's affecting your brain, then your whole it's just going to go along for the ride.
It affects a part of the brain called the thalamus, which is overwhelmed sensory overload.
Right.
Because you have so much stimulation coming at you, especially the kids on the video games. So it just kind of puts them on overdrive.
Gotcha.
And drives their neurotransmitters down. You notice today, I have so many preteens, teens in my office that have anxiety and depression. And, you know, in my day, we went outside and played.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't have...
Climbed a tree.
You didn't hear about kids that were suicidal at 9 years old. Just didn't.
I know, it's so...
Didn't have that.
It's so weird, because back, like, when I was younger, I would play... Me and my buddies would go out inside and play with G.I. Joes.
That's right.
You know? Or climb a tree, or like play soldiers, or you would have a stick, and we were
active.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good that they're it sucks because you have on one hand you're trying to get them acclimated to technology because it's impossible.
It is the real world today, yes.
But you want them to like experience what
Mhm.
you used to experience, like because it was fun.
Right.
You were out in the the yard and like breathing that
Mhm.
fresh air and running, and you felt good to be connected to the earth and to the
Mhm.
trees around you and the wildlife. And I don't know, it's just I used to love going out into the woods, and you'd see a deer, you'd see a
Right.
squirrel or something, and you'd be like, oh, look at that. And it was just fun to kind of be in that moment. You don't really get that on a I mean, there's some immersive games, don't get me wrong,
Right,
but
sure.
it's just real life there's
Mhm.
nothing compared to real life.
And I think the memories that we have of being, that's what I remember is being with family, being
Yeah.
outside.
Going to your grandma's house and and like rooting around and trying to like have a little adventure, or going, like, we used to have a pear tree and we'd go out and there'd be wasps all over the pear trees, and so you'd like try to go get a pear, right? And you're like kind of like, okay, there's not a wasp on that one, and go get it, and you'd grab it and then you'd run because the wasp would start getting mad and angry. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine. So basically, I've been an acupuncturist for 17 years, but I've worked with the brain for about 12 years now.
Yeah.
And it is really the mainstay of my practice. I do use needles in Chinese medicine as well, but I always balance the brain first, because if the brain doesn't know there's a problem, it doesn't know how to fix it, essentially.
How'd you get into it, if you don't mind me? Like, what led you into this
Into
profession?
the whole thing, into acupuncture
Yeah, kind
in
of like,
general.
because I mean, what were you doing, I guess, before that? Were you always wanting?
Well, this is a very crazy story. So are you
we
ready?
We
Are
love
you
crazy stories.
Are you
All right, hold
sitting
on.
down?
Let me.
Yes.
Okay, we're good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, when I was 29, I said a prayer that by the time I was 30, I would know my calling, because I knew I was put on this earth for something. I just didn't know what. At
Right.
that time, I actually was a recruiter. I helped find people jobs, and that was fulfilling to me. But when I was 5, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, I was at my grandmother's house playing outside in the gravel driveway.
Right.
And I was right by the road. But in the 70s, you could be right on the street and nobody paid attention and nobody cared and no one's going to steal you, right?
Yeah.
So I remember being in the driveway and picking up rocks in the driveway. I loved rocks. And so this man rides up on this bicycle. I can see him to this day. He had on a red plaid shirt and jeans, and he had boots on. He had sandy brown hair, and he was wearing like horn rimmed glasses. It was the 70s, right? So he gets off his bike and lays it down, and he comes over and he kind of squats down next to me, and he's looking at me, and I can see his face to this day. He had these crystal clear blue eyes. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just playing with these pretty rocks," or whatever I said when I was 5. And he said, "I want you to look at me." And I looked up at him, and he said, "When you get big, you're going to be something very special, okay?" And I looked at him and I said, "Okay." And he said, "Look at me." He said, "Don't forget." I said, "Okay." And so I turned my head to pick up a rock. I was going to hand him one of my favorite rocks in my pile, and he was gone. So we've always heard stories of angels. You've probably heard angels visiting you.
Right.
But literally, him and his bicycle were
completely gone.
Completely gone. Okay. So I'm in my cubicle finding people jobs when I was 29.
Fast forward.
And here comes those blue eyes and that face in my mind's eye, right? And I hear the words and I see his face, and he says, "Don't forget." 2 words. And I said, "Oh,
That took your breath away.
I don't think I'm doing my something special."
Yeah.
He said I was going to be something special. I like this, but I don't think this is it.
Right.
And so I took a giant leap of faith. My dad was a born-again preacher in the 70s. So I had my connection with God. I call it my God voice. So I went home that night and I said a prayer that by the time I was 30, I would know my calling in this life. So I quit my job, and I had a pretty good paying job. And I waited tables at night so I could do anything that I wanted during the day to try to find out what my calling was. So I really dug in deep and did some crazy things. I worked at a florist. I worked for an interior designer. I had a bachelor's of fine art degree at that.
Man, you were just like going through this.
But I knew it wasn't.
Yeah, it didn't feel
it didn't feel right.
Right.
And so one of the jobs that I volunteered for, I thought maybe I want to go into marine science. And I was in Sarasota, Florida at the time. They had an animal hospital there called Moat Marine Aquarium.
Yeah.
So it was an aquarium kind of. They did tours. We had sea turtle patrol, and we had manatees, 2 manatees, Hugh and Buffett, that I helped care for. And
That must have been pretty cool.
I gave tours, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
And then I was asked to be part of the mammal hospital and the mammal rescue team because they knew I wanted to go into marine science.
Yeah.
And so we started rehabbing. Well, they were already doing it. I started rehabbing whales and dolphins that stranded on the beach. And I really loved it. And I would sit there. We would measure their breath rate and their heart rate. And
it sounds fulfilling.
It was very fulfilling. And I really loved it. And I was doing a vet exam. I was the person that took the blood to the hospital after the vets would take the blood from the tail or the fluke of the dolphin. And I was on site. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and we got a call that a mama whale had come in and brought her baby pygmy sperm whale, and it was beached right on our beach. And so I was just serendipitous. I got to go on the rescue to rescue this whale. His name was Abby. We didn't know if it was a male or female, so it turned out to be a male, but we called him Abby.
Yeah.
And he had a bacterial infection in his stomach. Mm. And so we rescued him that day and brought him into our mammal hospital. He was so sick he couldn't swim on his own. He had to be held 24/7 and fed by a tube.
Jeez Louise.
And so every time it was my turn to be on duty to hold him.
Whale watch.
There were maybe 3 or 4 of us at a time, 24 hours a day, that had to be on shift to hold this whale up. So when it was my time, very strange things started happening and people started noticing. He would be very agitated. He was sick, right? They figured he was 6-8 months old. So he was probably 125 pounds at that point.
Lord.
And so when it was my turn to hold him, after a few minutes, his agitation would just calm down. So it was like the running joke around the hospital. I was the whale whisperer, right? So I thought, well, my dad's a preacher. I'm just doing Jesus's work. I'm using my hands to help heal this animal. I didn't know, but the breath rate and the heart rate weren't matching the rhythm that I was feeling when I held this whale. I could feel this strange sensation running through my hands, and the whale would just start to, when I felt the rhythm, the whale would start to calm down.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know anything about alternative medicine at that point, so I had no idea what was going on.
But you knew there was something happening.
But I got so into this whale that I probably volunteered at this animal hospital 35 hours a week. Wow. If I wasn't waiting tables, I was single at the time, no kids. I was with this whale. So we made this incredible bond.
Yeah.
And what I realized holding this whale was it wasn't the breath rate and the heart rate that I was interested in. It was the healing of the animal and being able to calm this animal's stress. And so I went on my way. Abby unfortunately died.
Oh, man.
I was so distraught by the news of his death that I couldn't really go back to the animal hospital. I was grieving the loss of this animal because we had become like he knew me when I got in the tank.
Yeah.
And he would try to bite when he could swim at the end. He would try to bite everybody that would come for him, but he never did that with me. So I became like friends with the whale. Yeah. It sounds crazy, but
no, I think there's great energy there.
So about 6 months into my stint of finding my calling, I got a call from my recruiting team, and they're just like, "We miss you. Will you come have lunch with us?" And so in the middle of lunch, and they goaded me into coming back to work. So at that point,
reeled you back in,
I
right?
was pretty sick of waiting tables. I was waiting tables at 2 places. One was a country club with 5 different restaurants. So I was working in 6 different restaurants, and I was exhausted. And I missed having the money. So
I was about to say, you must have been working like 60 hours a week or
I was.
more, man.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it at night and volunteering during the day.
Well, this was after it kind of curbed, after Abby died, and it curbed down. I thought, I'm just going to go back for a while. And so a few months goes by, and I kind of forgot about what I was doing. And so about 2 weeks before I turned 30, I read the self-help books. I did all these jobs, all the crappy jobs too. I'm in a parking garage in the top of a building in Sarasota. I put my hands up on my hips. I looked up at the sky. It was a clear blue sky with these pretty clouds floating by. And I said, all right, God, I did the crappy jobs. I read all these self-help books. I did every job I thought I could love. By the way, my birthday's in 2 weeks in case you forgot. And I just went on my way because I knew we still had 2 weeks. That was still a lot of time. So another week goes by, and I had a dream that I was standing with a white lab coat on next to a small table, which even at almost 30, I'd never had a massage. I didn't grow up with means or anything to go get massages.
Right.
So it was a small table, and there was a woman lying on the table, and we were holding hands, and we were smiling at each other. And I sit up out of bed. This was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm staring at my hands like this. I could feel this very strange current kind of going through my body. And it was almost like it was coming out of my hands. My hands looked red to me at the time. So I get up out of my bed and I go into the living room because in the 70s, we still use a phone book. Or the 90s, this is the 90s, sorry. In the 90s, we still use a phone book. So I grabbed the phone book out of the living room and I went back to my bedroom.
Yeah.
And I opened up the phone book. This was about a week before I turned 30 to acupuncture schools.
You got to be kidding me.
And I woke up from my dream. So I was kind of half in and out. Like I really saw my hands. I really got the phone book. I opened it to acupuncture schools and I'm like, wait a minute.
So specific.
God, aren't these needles? Didn't I read somewhere acupuncture is needles? You know, I don't do needles, by the way. And I thought, this is kind of crazy, right? So the place that I moved after I got my art degree in Ohio was a town that had 3 acupuncture schools. Now I can tell you there's probably not a town in this country that has 3 acupuncture schools. And at the time, it was Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah.
And so I called just the first number on the Monday. This was over the weekend. And made an appointment to go down. And I thought, well, I got to check this out. So the dean introduces herself. She sits me down at her desk and I shake her hand. And I said, I'm supposed to be an acupuncturist. She said, you are? How do you know that? I said, well, God told me. And she said, he did? I said, yep, he did. There's only one problem. She said, what's that? I said, I'm terrified of needles. And she said, well, I think it's something you should go do and see if
just try it.
See if you could do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
So I get up and I put my hand out. I'm like, all right, thank you very much. It was really nice to meet you. I'm like, I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
She said, no, come with me.
Uh-oh.
So those few words changed my life. She's like, I said, now?
Because she's like, no, don't.
She said,
don't go.
Now, come with me. I don't know if she wouldn't have drugged me back there if I would have ever come back, right?
Right.
So I go back to the student clinic and they sit me down. They're like, what's wrong with you? You have any symptoms? I'm like, no, I'm fine, you know? And so they start going into my history. Well, when I moved from Ohio to Florida, I got really bad allergies. So bad, I was on a Allegra and on an inhaler. But as a patient, and I don't know if you've been a patient, you kind of forget that's like normal, you know?
Yeah.
Because you get in that motion of just you do it every day and you're like, well, this just...
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. So they decided, since the only thing I could come up with, they would treat my allergies and my asthma. Because literally, if I didn't have my inhaler with me, then 30 minutes would go by. I'd have to go and get it. Like I was having trouble breathing. And I was in perfect health otherwise. But there's something blooming in Florida that my body just couldn't handle. And so they put the needles in and gave me some Chinese herbs. In about 2 sessions, I was healed. And I thought, this is crazy. Works. This is crazy. This is a master's degree. I'm a waitress. How am I going to do this? They were trying to get accredited to get student loans, but at the time that wasn't happening. So I thought, I'm going to wait a year and see if it's really something I want to do.
It's still kind of like calling me, right?
Because I tend to jump into stuff. So I thought, I'm going to wait a year. And so about 9-10 months goes by. I'm at the recruiting place. And I kind of forgotten all about the acupuncture. And I get really sick. I mean, walking pneumonia, bronchitis. I was really sick for about 6 weeks. Well, I tend to still keep working, so I hadn't even really taken a day off
oh my gosh.
to get well. And after about 6 weeks of being so sick, I thought, oh, that acupuncture, that really helped my allergies and asthma. I wonder if it would help me get over this sickness.
Yeah.
So I called the acupuncture school that I had gone to. Well, they had closed down. So I wonder what would have happened if I would have just jumped in and just gone to that school, and they would have closed. I don't know if I'd be sitting here today, right?
There's a
There
plan,
is.
right?
So I just called the next. There's 3, so I just called the next one in the book. It was closer to me, and I made an appointment for the Saturday because God forbid I miss a day of work on my deathbed, right?
Right. Yeah.
So Saturday morning comes around, and I'm so sick that I can't physically move. Like my head is nailed to my pillow with a green phlegm, right? And after a few minutes, I thought, I'm going to have to cancel this appointment because I really can't get off this pillow.
Right.
And this very calm male voice says to me in my head, oh, you really need to go. I knew who was talking to me, right? So after a few more minutes, I tried to get up and my body was just so heavy. And I said, God, I promise I'll go, but I can't go today. So the voice says a little more stern, no, you really need to go. Kind of like a stern dad kind of voice. You know that voice?
Oh, yeah.
And after a couple more minutes, I remember the tears falling on the pillow because I literally couldn't lift my head. And I said, God, I'm sorry. I am sick. I cannot go. And that voice said to me, get up and go now. Screamed at me. The next thing I know, and this is a true story, you can think I'm totally cuckoo. I'm sitting in my car and I look down and I have clothes on. And in my left hand is my wallet and in my right hand is my keys. And I can tell you, I have no idea how I got there. And I drive to the new clinic.
Yeah.
And the woman in the white lab coat comes out to get me. And she takes one look at me. I must have been white as a sheet. And she hands me some peppermint oil from her coat pocket. And she said, don't tell anybody this isn't Chinese medicine. She put it under my nose so I could breathe. So she takes me back to the treatment room. And she puts the needles in and she leaves. And in the student clinic, you get 20 minutes. You're in and out. And so I must have fallen asleep because she came in after 20 minutes, woke me up, pulled the needles out, and she leaves the room so I could get dressed and get acclimated. Yeah. And I sit up and it's gone. Now, I don't mean I feel better. I mean the green phlegm has left the building. And in 20 minutes, physiologically, that is impossible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So not only was I feeling better, I went and washed and waxed my car for 4 hours that day. And I had more energy than before I got sick. And I had no traces of illness in my body.
Man.
So it's like God was saying, how many more miracles do I have to show you?
Geez, lady,
Get your butt in that school. Right?
Yeah.
So that was about November. I started school in January. And I never looked back. Because every day when I walk into my office, I know that I'm doing the work that I was led here to do. I'm doing my something special because the work that I do, there's really nothing that compares to it.
Nothing I've ever seen. I've been to a lot of doctors.
And I'm just grateful and blessed that I get to share the gifts that really I was given.
Yeah.
And so the crazy thing is when I started acupuncture school, I also got into something called cranial sacral therapy.
Yeah.
So at the time I was doing school, I was also training on the weekend for courses for cranial sacral therapy. And the first time I got on a person, you listen to the body's cranial rhythm. So your spinal fluid runs up your spine, around your neck and into your head like it's filling a balloon. It goes back down around your neck and down. 6 to 12 cycles per minute is normal. So the first time I put my hands on somebody to feel that cranial rhythm, who comes screaming in my head was Abby, the pygmy sperm whale.
No way.
So I realized at that moment I was giving this whale cranial sacral therapy.
You didn't even know it.
I had no idea. I was balancing it was the same strange rhythm that I felt that calmed him down. It was that rhythm that I tapped into when I was in that class. I'm like, holy crap, I've been given this animal Chinese or alternative medicine.
Didn't even realize it.
And it was Abby, really, it was the healing of Abby that got me interested in going holistic because at that time I thought, I want to work with animals. But to go and be a vet, I was in Sarasota. Again, I'm a waitress. I was going to have to move to northern Florida where the vet school was.
Yeah.
I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 later, or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be expensive.
I was single at the time, so I knew to be a vet tech, I was going to make about $10 an hour, maybe $12 an hour, and I knew I couldn't do that either.
Yeah.
So when I started acupuncture school, I was so excited because then I could do acupuncture on animals because I know that was a thing, and that worked. And so I met in the first quarter of my school, I met with the owner of the school, and I said, yeah, I'm really in acupuncture school because I want to work with animals. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, well, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, why is that? He said, well, because I helped write some of the laws for acupuncture, and I accidentally wrote the word human in one of the laws. So the lobbyists got us now, and you have to be a veterinarian to work on animals.
Oh, man.
Dang it. So anyway, but I get to do great things with
it
people.
Sucked that happened, but I'm kind of glad that it did,
Right.
because now you get to help every.
That's
it would
right.
have been good for you to help, animals too. Animals are
Right.
awesome.
So I can say that I don't do acupuncture on animals with the brain work.
Yeah,
I kind of sneak, I can't really charge for animals, but I kind of sneak in some.
you're like, when you come in, you got a dog,
Animals at
little
the
dog, or a
time.
little kitty
Yeah.
cat.
I had a dog that had gotten bitten by a snake that got really
Oh.
sick, and I treated him, and he was fine. So I've had some crazy, great stories with animals I won't get into today, but that's why I'm an acupuncturist. I love acupuncture because it not only treats the physical body.
Right.
Most people think acupuncture is just for pain, but really, if you have a symptom and you can't put a Band-Aid on it and you don't need to go to the emergency room for it, guess what? Acupuncture and Chinese medicine can help with literally anything in between,
Right.
because it balances the whole person. We take your pulses. I can read the health of your organs in your pulses. I have you look at your tongue. I can tell how your organs are doing if you have chronic dehydration. So I can look at your face and tell different things about your face. So I can look in your ear and look in the veins of your ear, any scars in your ear, anything like that. So there's a lot of different ways the Chinese have learned to read the body. They
Right.
had the weather 5,000 years ago. So basically they use weather patterns. So you might, if you know much about acupuncture or Chinese medicine, they'll say, oh, you have too much cold in your body, or you have too much wind heat in your body. So they try to normalize the body based on their old weather patterns, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why I knew when we went to you, like, I knew, I was like, there's a reason why this has been around for thousands of years, and why it's never, like, it's super popular in Eastern Europe and everything, and it is starting to get a lot popular over here, and it something's not going to stick around for thousands of years if it wasn't doing something,
Right.
like if it's just like a hoax, or it's hokey.
Mhm.
It actually, and it has science behind it too. That's what really interested in me, because when you started talking about it, you were telling me, and you were like bringing up, like, you were mixing in the science with it and telling me these are the reasons why I'm doing this, and this is how it's happening. And you really explained it to me, and I was like, that's really different. Like, a doctor's usually just like, yeah, this is what's wrong with you. This is the medicine. Do you have other questions? Okay, cool. Have a good day. But you really actually were like, this is why I'm doing this to you. This is what's happening. This is how I'm doing it. And you're explaining. I just like that fact that you would go into depth, which you didn't have to, but you did, and you explained it to me, and it made me feel a lot better, and it made me kind of trust you.
Well, I think it's really important to educate the people that I'm treating, because this is very foreign to people. Yes, it's been around for 5,000 years, but people are really just tired of not getting well. So they're looking at other alternatives to, to help the body process their stress.
Right.
I have a little guy named George. I should have brought him today, but my disclaimer I tell my patients always is, I believe that we are divinely created. This system of medicine was put in us at the beginning of time. The Chinese just discovered it first. So I personally don't believe it has anything to do with their religion or voodoo hoodoo or anything like that. It's just another way our bodies are set up to heal.
Right.
So at my recruiting firm, there were two recruiters, the office manager and the owner, a very small practice. We literally faced each other. She was a part of a small church that, when, I don't know how they found out, but they found out I was going to acupuncture school, they forbid her from ever speaking to me again.
That's crazy.
So she said, I'm sorry, but because you're going to be an acupuncturist, my church won't let me be friends with you anymore.
That's awful.
And that was a long time ago, and I didn't know better. But now I would say, who do you think created our bodies in the first place? The Chinese
Right.
didn't put these meridians inside of us. I believe that God created us when he created us.
Yeah.
And I wish I had those words to say that to her and to her church at that point. I'm a Jesus girl. My dad was a preacher. So, it's just a normal way the body heals. But in Western medicine, they actually can measure these meridians. They're tightly wound chains of water molecules that float in the superhighway system. Western medicine believes they're part of our lymphatic system. They could be measured on a computer scale called a fluoroscopy machine, where they literally will put a blue dye in the beginning of a channel. They have, I don't know, it's probably on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. They put a blue dye here, and they watch the meridian be traced, and it crosses what's called the philtrum here and ends right there.
Right.
There's no other explanation in Western science of any nerve pathway or any pattern that crosses this philtrum and ends there. It's the exact meridian tracing of the large intestine channel.
Right.
So every one of our organs has its own what they call meridian, but it's like a superhighway system that carries information. It's a communication pathway between different organ systems, different parts of the body. These guys get kinked up when they're stressed. So there's 8 types of stress or disorder that causes disease: structural, emotional, chemical, environmental, nutritional, scar tissue, infections, toxins. So just about everything can be categorized in one of those boxes that causes stress.
Right.
So these meridians help those 8 stress responses. Imagine if you have a flow of rivers in your body or on the earth, and a landslide comes down and puts a bunch of boulders in the river. What happens to that water? Where does it go? Right? It starts to back up behind the boulder.
Like a dam.
It's got to find a pathway to go around the boulders. So in this game, I always say I'm the gardener. I'm going to unkink these hoses so fresh blood, oxygen, nutrients can flow through your system again, restore your body back to health. I'm removing the boulders in your rivers so that fresh flow of nutrients can flow and really restore your body back to its original condition.
Right. Circulation, I mean, it's not rocket science. Circulation, the more circulation you have in your body, the better off you are. More oxygen is carried into your blood and through your organs and everything. So that's what I'm saying. You have science that is intermingled with this. So everybody knows that. They teach that to you, in school at probably 3rd, 4th grade in science. So,
and I don't think people realize that in acupuncture school, it's over 5,000 hours. It's not learning Chinese medicine. It's probably half Western medicine and half Chinese medicine, because we have to know the anatomy and physiology of the body. We have to know the physics of the body.
Yeah, you don't want to go in like in blind, I guess you would say, right?
And we study drugs, biochemistry, all that other stuff, so we can communicate with the medical profession as well. So I don't think people realize that there's a lot of Western medicine in our training. I remember one of my final exams in anatomy and physiology, I had to draw by memory the bones of the hands and the feet and name them all, right? So what does that have to do with acupuncture?
Right.
It does and it doesn't.
Right.
But it's really, we had to learn those body systems inside and out.
Do you guys ever work with Western doctors and stuff, like in tandem, I guess you would say, kind of like if they're seeing someone? I'm sure you guys get referred by doctors. Like people will say, hey, I think you should go see these, go to the Tree of Life Healing and see them. I think they can help with, kind of you coming to me and going to her. And I think that's cool that you do that, that you do that, do that.
I work with medical doctors. I work with counselors. I work with psychologists. A lot of different realms of the medical profession.
Right.
Know that they can only go so far.
Yeah.
And now they're really looking at alternative ways. I have surgeons that say, you're getting acupuncture? Awesome. Right? Fertility is another thing.
Yeah.
Fertility docs, they really say, especially if you're going to go through IUI, IVF, if you incorporate acupuncture with those treatments, it can increase your your probability of carrying a baby to term by 50%.
And
Wow.
what's funny is that you say that is we told our fertility doctor that the lady that was kind of like seeing us all the time, our main doctor, we were literally we were like going to take a loan out and do IVF, and it was going to be like 20 grand.
Yeah, yeah.
And we told her, she was like, she's like, have you thought of other things? Is there anything else you want to try before you do this? She's like, I just want you to make sure that you're prepared. And we told her we're going to go see you. And she was like, I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I think you should go see her as many times as you want. And she's like, we're not in a super big rush. She's like, the clock is ticking a little bit. She's like, but it's not like you're 40, She's like, you have a little bit of time. So she's like, experiment with it and see it. She's like, I think that's a great idea that you're going to see them, because she's like, I think it could help you. And she's like, you don't know until you try.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely doesn't hurt to try.
No, it does not. And now it's we're excited and expecting on February 11th. So
That's awesome.
I'm happy. I'm a happy papa. And I also wanted to talk about one thing that I really loved that you did was the essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
And how you had like a custom mix of oils for that person. It's like,
yes.
So these are your symptoms. This is what we're trying to, you're helping. And then you're saying, hey, here's something you can take home with you to help as well.
Right.
So you're not just like seeing them and saying, okay, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, hey, let's, do you want to get like a basic one or do you want to mix one? And I thought that was really cool how you were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you were kind of taking that and saying, I think that, this oil, because I love essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think people should use them more every day for stress. They help. I mean, there's so many things that they help with.
Yes.
And I just really like that fact that you did that.
And I think the oils are important. I also specialize in something called homeopathy. And I think the homeopathic blend that I do with the herbal mixture really helps as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm one that I don't want people to come in and have to spend hundreds of dollars on supplements. They leave and they're already confused. I've already bombarded them with so much information.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, here, take $300 worth of supplements. I don't even know if their liver pathways are open at that time to even be able to absorb all this stuff. And we definitely don't want a toxicity reaction or allergy reaction to somebody that's trying to get well,
right.
Especially somebody that's trying to get pregnant.
Exactly.
So I've adopted my own theory. I call it my mad scientist pharmacy. And so it's a company called Energetics. They use liquids. And so I probably have 85 blue bottles that I keep on my bookshelf. And what I do is I go through your history and what you need. I do a lot of muscle testing, which I can talk about in a minute.
Yep. And
I really ask the body of these nutrients, of these herbs, of these homeopathic remedies, what do you need at this moment in this time to heal whatever we're healing?
And that was cool because you were asking the body, because like sometimes you might not even know what's going on with your body.
Well, I was gonna say for my MS, I actually am not taking disease modifying drugs right now for lots of reasons, but but I take probably over $300 worth of supplements. I mean, like I'm taking vitamin D3. I take 50,000 milligrams of that a week. I take a multivitamin. I take a multi-B vitamin of B12, kelp. I take zinc, magnesium.
Yeah, I think
calcium.
I literally picked up some vitamins for you last night.
Yeah, they were on my front porch.
I was like, what is that?
From Amazon.
And then I just
there's just one side of my pantry that's just full of vitamins. Like some of them I take and some of them I don't take or I forget to take. But like it's just I take a probiotic every day. I take a fish oil every day. I just like I could continue to name them off, but obviously you get the point. But those are just things that I experiment with. I don't have anybody to tell me.
Right. And I'm certainly not against supplementation.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I recommend things, even a lot of things that I don't carry everything because I'm not a health food store.
Yeah.
I will send you out for different things. Unfortunately, our soil sucks. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
Our food, water, and air is totally toxic. So yes, unfortunately, we have to get our nutrients sometimes in a bottle or in a liquid form because we're not getting it from our food now.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's a travesty in my opinion.
It
When I
is.
was growing up in the 70s, we had a garden. We grew our vegetables. So a lot of our food, we would go in as families and we would buy a cow. So we had fresh farmed meat, eggs.
Yeah.
We grew our vegetables, kind of like a commune,
Yeah.
70s commune. But we grew up with millet and quinoa for breakfast.
It's like farm
Um,
to table.
those
That's
whole
invented,
grains.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
To heal the body. But these homeopathic remedies, a lot of people might have heard the word homeopathy, but they don't really understand what it is.
right.
It's a very strange phenomenon. It's only been out for a couple hundred years. It's mostly used in France, in Germany, and London, in the UK. There are a lot of homeopaths, and a lot of people go to their homeopaths before they go to their medical doctor. But a really cool guy named Christopher Hahnemann back in the 1800s. He was a medical doctor. Let's say somebody would come in and they would die from a bee sting. So he had the idea one day that he went and caught a physical bee and he killed it and he crushed it up. And he put it in a gallon of water. I think he used distilled water at the time. And he shook those bee parts up in that gallon of water. I don't know if he had a machine or whatever. And he took one drop of that bee water and he put it into a gallon of clean water. And he did it again. He shook it up. And he took a drop from that gallon and he kept diluting this physical bee just down to the energetic frequency of that bee, because everything has a vibrational frequency. It's how the bee knows to go to the flower, just the way God set up nature. People call it, quantum, but everything has a code or an IP address in nature. So he took that IP address or that vibrational code and he gave it back to the man that was going to die from a bee sting. And guess what? It cured him. And so giving the minute doses, even of these poisons or stressors, back to the body energetically corrects things. So a lot of my practice, I use homeopathy. I do use some herbs. I use the liquid herbs, and I put everything in my Magic Scientist pharmacy in one bottle. So you only have to worry about taking one thing, because it's hard to comply. Also, people are busy and they get sent home with that stuff and they don't really want to stick to it.
Right.
So I have a 1 or 2 ounce bottle, and the 1 ounce bottle is $22. So most people can afford that.
It was awesome. Like you were like, because you start essential oils are not cheap, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna cost like $150, and you're like, nope, and told me, and I was like, are you sure about that? And you said, here's the basic, here's the custom, and I was like, no, we're just gonna get the custom because I want whatever chance we can get to get her pregnant, I will pay whatever you want. And so I'm glad I did.
So the homeopathy and the herbs, I have one. We used to joke and call it sex juice, but so many people wanted it, we thought, well, we better come up with a more professional name for it. So we call it Surge.
Right.
So there's Surge for him and there's Surge for her. And it helps regulate hormones. It helps reduce stress. It helps the male endocrine system or the female endocrine system go back into balance.
I actually had my tubes tied after my last daughter was born, and I've had severe problems. Does it help with stuff like that?
It certainly could, and it helps also increase your libido, too. And a lot of people, when you have procedures...
I need you to buy me some so that I can have my hormones balanced.
I'll take them up there.
Surge for her.
Yeah, I'll take them up there and let her mix a concoction up for you.
I had a guy, he called me, it was about 4:00 on a Saturday, and he said, you still there? And I said, yeah. He goes, what time are you leaving? I said, I'm actually leaving right now. He goes, oh, really? And I said, what's going on? He goes, it's Saturday night. I need my sex juice. And I said, where do you live?
No.
So he told me, I said, I actually am driving right past there. Meet me at the QT.
Like,
I'll make you up some sex juice.
You got a date tonight, don't you?
So I met him at the QT and gave him his sex juice. And he was very happy and on his way.
You know what? That's very nice of you, because I guarantee you probably made his night.
I probably did. Oh, too funny.
Yeah.
So should we talk about the knurling? Do we have time?
Yeah, if you want to,
Okay.
I think that would be, if you want to do one more thing, I think
Okay.
because I really was interested about kind of that's what it's about, trying to let people know about this, because a lot of people don't know exists, and if they've heard about it, they don't fully understand it. And I want it to come from someone who's been doing it for, you said what, 12?
12 years.
I mean, I've on some of our other podcasts, I have talked about some of the stuff that I do for my, because I try to do, like I said, supplements and holistic stuff. Obviously, you can't do it all unless you know where to go to. You can read, and I think you have to have a belief in it too. And I don't think a lot of people, they're like you said, either their religion says don't do it, or that's voodoo, or that's not modern.
Right.
And so I think that people should probably get past those blocks when it comes to holistic medication.
And what I do is very outside the box. And the first time I have somebody on my table, it depends on who referred them or how they found out about me. And I'm like, did you hear that what I do is really weird and really outside the box? And they're like, well, yeah, but I was just told, you got to go see her, because nobody can really explain it. And I tell people, I'm going to do it for you, and you're going to go home, and guess what? You're still not going to be able to explain it. So I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. So you have a little snippet of what you can tell people, but really just go by the way you feel, because that's really the most important thing.
Right.
So yes, we're balancing. This is functional neurology. It looks like a bunch of voodoo hoodoo because it's muscle testing. So basically a muscle test, I don't know if have you ever been muscle tested? This is called kinesiology. It's been around for a long time. So I can show it on you if you want.
Yeah.
So basically you hold your arm strong. And if you can get past the weirdness of this part, then you can understand the brain work a little better. But it's called a motor sensory loop. So you can actually hold your arm strong. I can speak a language between the brain and the body, and this is called NIS or Neuralink. And the motor sensory loop, the brain will either understand this language that I'm asking it to do by holding that muscle strong. It's like a light switch. If it disconnects and doesn't understand the language, that arm will actually go weak. So do you want to?
Yeah, do you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Do it. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You
just want to sit over there on the couch with her? Yeah, whichever. Yeah, so they can see it.
Yeah.
Will that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Let's see how this stuff is.
Okay. So don't cross your feet because you want to leave your energy field straight. And you don't have your phone in your pocket or anything, do you? Okay. So you're just going to hold your arm strong and don't let me push it down. Just resist. All right. You feel that strength when I hold it? Okay. So I want to show you that we have the polarity of the earth. Our bodies are on the earth. So we're supposed to hold that. It's called the Schumann resonance,
like
7.8 hertz, right?
Right?
And so I can hold here and ask the body, are you aligned? Kind of like a positive and negative.
Right.
This is a polarity of the earth. And I can just turn my finger over because it's a different frequency.
Right.
And hold strong. And that body is not able to hold that. You feel how that's a little bit weaker? So if I hold here, it's strong. Is this telling me anything? No, just telling me that she's on the earth's plane. She's upright.
Right.
So let's look at communication between your brain and your spinal cord. So this is a language. This is Dr. Alan Phillips. He's an osteopathic physician out of New Zealand. Very hardcore neuroscience man. So let's look at communication between the signal of the brain down to the spine. So put your arm up for me and hold. You feel that weakness? It just doesn't want to hold, right?
Right.
So I can hold these two. The brain doesn't understand. I'm going to tap on a part of the brain called the postcentral gyrus. It's literally the on switch of the fuse box. Now I'm going to recheck that fuse again. And hold. See how strong it is? I can literally put all my weight on you and I can't budge your arm. You feel that?
I see her like stretching to like push you.
So this is basically looking at signals.
Right.
Right. Remember the stress suitcase from birth until today? The brain has just stacked up those stressors. So the brain will tell me in priority and in sequence the most important things to go for first. Remember, balancing those 8 types of stress: structural, emotional, chemical, environmental, nutritional, scar tissue infections, toxins.
Yeah.
I always tell people, look, I'm just the monkey running the tests. I have no idea what your brain's going to tell me, because guess what? Your doctor uses their brain and their expertise to try to fix you.
And speaking of that, I didn't mean to, but when you did that and you told my wife about something that happened to her at 10 and 11,
Right.
and she didn't even remember actually what happened. And then we went home, or no, we were still there, and you had left, I think, to get ready for the acupuncture. And she goes, "Holy shit," and looks back at me and goes, "She's talking about what happened." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. Like, how the hell did she know that?"
Right.
And that's what's crazy is she didn't even remember it, because I guess she had like pushed it back.
Sure.
And you had just said just something because you were feeling like her gut, Fauna, and you're like, something feels weird here, and you're like, did something happen? And she did, like, it was so weird that she didn't even remember it, but you found it out. I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
Well, that's because I'm using her brain and its expertise to fix her body.
Right. It's like,
because
yeah, I remember.
It is recorded. It's a computer.
Right.
It's recorded everything that's ever happened. I have a little kid on my table. I'm like, you like to play computer games, right? Because what little kid doesn't? So your brain is like a giant computer.
Right.
So I'm going to see if the apps on your computer actually open or not. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm the electrician in the acupuncture game. I'm your gardener. And this time I'm the electrician. I'm checking for that communication between the brain and the body.
Right.
And guess what? If it's off, if your brain is offline, let's say you fall down and hurt your knee, if that falls out of the brain's ability to control it because of the force of the trauma, it just kind of blows a fuse. It's a defense mechanism because it's got to keep the rest of the lights of your house on, keep you alive, right?
Right.
Over time, it recognizes symptoms, doesn't really remember how it got there in the first place. And over years, the body starts to compensate to keep you upright because maybe a tendon in the knee is offline. So that maybe it might start affecting your hips, and then it might affect the opposite shoulder, and then maybe you get headaches. The doctor's going to give you a medicine for your headache. If you don't fix that knee,
that's the whole. Yep.
That's right. So the brain's going to say, "Hey, by the way, you need to go fix that tendon in the knee." And they get up and walk, and guess what? Weirdly, their headache goes away. Do I know everything that's ever happened to them? No, but I don't have to. Yeah. That's why I'm the monkey running the test, right? I'm just your computer operator.
Right.
I'm fixing the computer. I'm removing those old programs that aren't working for you anymore. The cookies, the viruses, everything that has put compensation on the body. The brain and the body are starting to work together again. Removing the stress, right? With fertility, that's what I'm doing. I'm balancing your hormones. I'm helping, the acupuncture is helping increase the thickness of the uterine lining. We use some herbs and homeopathy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe some essential oils you put in your diffuser. It's helping balance the body, putting it in homeostasis. Bringing it back so the stress response can go down. Remember that tiger, that fight or flight response goes down, and we can go into healing mode.
Yeah.
I have great results with fertility because I'm getting the stress off the body and getting all the compensation and all the trauma layer by layer, because it's a stress suitcase, off the body so the body can heal. That's the magic. It's not one magic point or one magic herb that really does it, but it's looking at the body individually and looking at that woman. Guess what the men come into, because some fertility is on both sides. So I really want to look at both partners.
Right.
But I'm looking at how did you get to where you are, that the fertility is a problem for you.
Yeah. What's the issue? What's going on with it? I think you actually had a warning. I don't know where my wife saw it, but she said there's a warning or something that said, if you don't want to get pregnant, you should probably not do this certain type of, comfort. But I was like, that's the kind of warning we need right there. Like, if you don't, we're going to not heed that warning and go for it.
Well, I had a patient who, they were going to get engaged. They were in love, they wanted to have their first year, but she was really afraid she couldn't get pregnant.
Right.
And the more I worked with her and the more I balanced her, and I said to her one day, you better be careful. She's like, I don't think I can get pregnant. I said, I'm telling you, you better be careful.
Yeah, you're like,
I think he was going to propose to her maybe in December.
Yeah.
And in November, she called me and she said, you'll never believe it. I said, what, that you're pregnant? And she said, how did you know? I said, because I warned you.
I told you.
So they have a beautiful little girl now.
That's awesome.
Yes. I think there's people that come in, I don't know if they don't stick with me.
Right.
I had a woman that barreled in my door one summer, and all my rooms are full. It's a very quiet, peaceful place in my healing center.
It's super peaceful.
She comes in, Cari. And I'm like, oh, who's out there? And
Whoa.
she interrupted the whole place. And I walked out, and there's a woman. I probably saw her 2 or 3 times. She's got this big old belly. And she said, I'd never get to come down this way. I traveled far to see you, but you helped me have this baby. And she just wrapped me up in this big hug, and she flew out the door. And I'm like, that's why I do this all day. Right. Just made me so happy.
Yeah, it does. I just don't know. I can't really tell you how thankful I am. So happy that we're having a baby, but I think my wife, she just was honestly about to give up, and it was just so good that it wasn't hard to do. It wasn't expensive to do. And
right.
And it was, you were caring, and you were like, we're going to get through this together, and I'm going to help you. And you were like positive. You were being positive. You weren't like, no, I don't know if this is you were just like,
right.
Nope, we're going to be positive,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to fix these issues. And I just want to thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, it seems like a lot of people our age are having fertility issues.
I know.
We've talked to some other people who've had fertility issues, and
I think the biggest misnomer for fertility is the thyroid.
Really?
The thyroid is a big player.
Yeah.
Our diet can really, our insulin spiking of all the sugar and all the inflammatory foods that we eat. When people come in, I really talk about getting the inflammation down.
Right.
Really affects the thyroid. A lot of medical doctors really look at 1 to 3 thyroid hormones. There's 11.
Yeah.
And so we really need to look at the whole thyroid picture, because thyroid is responsible for all cellular and metabolic activity in the body.
It's like a monitor of your.
well, I know
It's crucial for pregnancy. And you really want to look at that thyroid, make sure that it's healthy.
it's crucial for blood pressure and stuff like that too, right?
So many things,
Yeah,
the thyroid.
and the thyroid really, you have to have a really good functioning thyroid for the rest of it. And I guess it's connected to the liver.
Is it kind of like the IT guy for your body?
It kind of is, yes. And unfortunately, because there is 11 markers, and I think the labs just kind of make up what's normal.
Yeah, like T3.
And so you say, oh, my lab tests
Yeah.
are normal. Well, there's a book that you can buy, and it says, why do I have thyroid issues if my lab tests are normal?
Yeah.
That's because, A, the labs just make up the numbers. Our normals in Georgia are a little different than North Carolina right next door.
Right.
They're about 40 years old. Guess what? We're not the same people that we were 40 years ago. Our food, water, and air is
Things
totally
have
different.
changed.
Well,
And so you have to look at the relationship between the numbers,
Right.
not just your TSH, not just your whatever.
what's normal for one different, could it also possibly be not normal for the next
Yes, you have to
person?
look at the relationship between the numbers. So for fertility, for example,
Right.
you have to look at diet. You have to.
Right.
You have to look at the thyroid. You have to look at your stress levels. You have to look at your hormones. So for fertility, we're treating the whole body, but there's different tricks. Did you know that green tea, looking to get pregnant, is not something that you want to do? A lot of people are like, green tea is really healthy.
See, I would have no
Right.
idea. I would think that it would, if maybe not help, it wouldn't be actually negatively impacted. But see,
It can affect the uterus lining. It can affect your follicle,
Right.
stimulate your follicle growth as well. Because in Chinese medicine, remember, they were all about the weather.
Yeah.
It's a very cold herb. So even if you drink hot green tea, if it's a cold herb, it can actually affect. So I'm really looking at a fine-tooth comb and really looking to see what's bothered you. Emotional trauma, childhood trauma,
Yep.
car accidents. What's getting in the way of this system not.
It's like that
Not working.
blockage. It's like a dam, like you were saying.
And unfortunately, a lot of people have had some kind of abuse.
Yeah.
I think the statistics are even up to 85% of
Yeah.
us have had some kind of physical or sexual or mental abuse in their lifetime. And guess what? That just stacks up, especially down here.
Yeah.
It stacks up those stressors for men and women.
Yep.
So one of the things in the Neuralink is we look at the emotional body, we look at those stacked up stressors. That's how the body actually told me at 10 years old, 11 years old, something happened. I can't make that stuff up.
Right. She's 30. I mean, you're like, you're not just going to be like,
Right.
yeah, right there.
I'm asking the body very specifically what happened at this time that caused this particular disconnect.
Right.
And the brain will actually tell me. and tell me the organ that got kind of offline during the trauma and the age that it got offline during the trauma, because it's a computer. It's recorded everything. I'm just tapping in and asking the body with that crazy muscle test, is the brain online? Is it confused that arm drops? It gives me the information that I need.
Right.
My favorite phrase that I tell every new patient is, you can't make this shit up.
That's what I'm saying.
You really can't.
I went in with a, open mind, and I was like, man, I don't know about it, but you know what? I was like, no, I'm the type of guy, I'm like, I'm going to have an open mind about this, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to listen, and I'm not going to say that's stupid. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to listen, and I'm glad I did, because what happened, I was like, holy shit. Okay. This is actually, it worked. That's what I want to try to tell people. And that's why I wanted you to come on, because it worked, man, and I hope everybody who watches this, if they have some kind of problem or something, that they go see you, or at least call and talk to you and say, doc, what is this something? What should I do? What kind of regimen should I go on? Like, should I get the oils? And you can guide them, and like, it's try it before you go to a doctor. Like, just try it.
It's like you said, what do you have to lose at this
what
point?
Do you have to lose?
If you're
try it
sick,
with your doctor.
Yeah,
yeah.
The Western Eastern medicine, there's no reason why that we can't all work
and
together.
That's what's great, is that's why I was really happy that you said that, because I think everybody we should have a community of doctors, and this doctor's not going to be able to cure everything. This doctor's not, this therapist can't do everything. Right. And they're like, okay, I've kind of done this, healed this part. Mm-hmm. Now you need to move over to this one, then move. And that's how you can get your whole body back to, like you said, homeostasis. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that I really appreciate you coming on, and that it was great having you.
Thank you.
And just remember, everybody, it's the Tree of Life Healing. What's the address again?
I'm at 1246 Concord Road.
Right.
Suite B200 in Smyrna. So my website is treeoflifeatl.com.
There you go. Visit it, and everybody, it's real. It's awesome. And I think anybody would benefit from it. We really appreciate Cari for being on, and we thank you, the listeners at home, for watching and listening to Help I Need an Adult. And we hope you guys have a great day, night, evening, whatever it may be. Thank you very much.